Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to another episode of Tuesday Takes, Week 2 edition of the show. Tre'Shon, not the start that either of us were looking for. In case you guys don't know, it's Tuesday Takes with Tre'Shon Diaz at Tre'Shon. Also got a new YouTube channel at All Trey Phases, which like that one too. We got the T name just works. There's so many ways you can make it work, so you got to take advantage of that whenever you can. But not the outcome we were hoping for, Tre'Shon. Tough, very familiar feeling loss for this Falcons team. How are you handling it so far on this? Technically, we're recording on Monday, but you guys will get it on Tuesday.
Yeah. The familiarity is just not. It's not fun. We know what these kinds of losses feel like, and they've become just too consistent. And it's been a feature of this team, unfortunately, for the past decade, which means we know how to take these punches and we know how to move on and talk about them the next day. But it's never fun talking about it. But you know what? We got to do it. We got to do it.
Yes, and this is not going to be we're going to, sit around and punch each other in the face for approximately 45 to 60 minutes type of show, guys. Like there are some bad things that we're going to get to, but this is the Thinking Fans show, right? We're going to talk about a little bit of everything here. It's going to be some negative and also some positive, because legitimately there were positive takeaways from this game. I think particularly on the defensive side of the ball. There were some players that really flashed some good things here that are worth discussing and worth getting excited about, even though season's not off on the right foot, and it does certainly put the Falcons in a bad position. But it is week 1. There is lots of football left, lots more potential pain or excitement to come in this 2025 NFL season. So before we get to that, of course, want to thank FanDuel for presenting Dirty Birds and Brews today. And yeah, we're going to dive right in to perhaps the most painful topic of all, which was that Younghoe Koo missed field goal to give the Falcons a shot at winning in overtime, which they haven't been great at doing lately. But I would have given the Falcons certainly a fair opportunity to win it in that situation. I think the Falcons defense actually was playing pretty well outside of like that last drive that we'll talk about the penalty, I'm sure, at some point there, among other things. But Younghoe Koo, just, you could see, I know you posted it on Twitter, just before right after he kicked it, he just kind of collapsed. Like, I think he knew he missed it. And it's like, it's just painful to watch a guy that has been so important to this team, so critical, so talented, and he still is very talented, just lose all confidence. And I think that's kind of what we witnessed this week. I think right when he should have missed that 36-yard field goal, which that instantly put the fear in me. I was like, ooh, that's not good. And then, missed again on the next attempt. So rough start for Koo here. And I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be able to keep this going. But Koo seems to unfortunately be cognizant of that as well, given his reaction on the field.
Yeah, he hit the turf, and it was just, it's brutal. Like, I know I've got a grin on my face here. It's just one of those things where it's like you got to laugh through the pain, because like you said, it really is startling to just kind of see what this player is dealing with right now, and we know the highs of their career, and we've definitely been in the lows now since last year. This is just not the performance, it's not the outcome. Like you mentioned, like as soon as the doink happened, I think that shattered his own confidence internally. This was, we're talking about a 44-yard field goal. This is kind of like, this is nothing, in the modern era. Something we haven't talked about either is that the Falcons bypassed a 57-yard field goal earlier in the game. I think was when they had an opportunity where they went for it for fourth down. There's clearly a lack of confidence in the kicker's ability right now. And, I think what really drove that point home to me was the sideline reaction. Guys have gone to bat for Koo today in the presser, but when you saw what happened after the missed field goal and you saw the camera pan to the sideline, there weren't any pats on the back. there weren't any, oh man, like, oh geez, this never happens. It looked like guys who were, for quite frankly, just fed up with this being a consistent result with their kicker.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I think obviously there are fans that have had turned on Koo last year, and probably justifiably so. I think there's very little tolerance for kickers missing kicks in the NFL. It just is what it is. Um, but I think this was the first time that it felt like the whole team lost confidence. And you mentioned it, like I think 2 years ago the Falcons wouldn't have hesitated to let him kick that 57-yarder. That is on the edge of his range, but I mean you trust him to make that in a critical moment. Now I think there's no more trust, and there's a reason they call it the dreaded vote of confidence, because you don't get a vote of confidence if things are going well, and they're not. And I'm not really sure. I like the one thing I wanted to ask you in particular, as the special team sommelier of the Falcoholic. Like, do you think there's an opportunity for him to perhaps go back to the old stance, like try to just go back? Like, is that something that he could do, or is this like the ship has already sailed and now you're in between two stances and it's like a nightmare situation?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I think that ship sailed this off season. I think that was the time to make that decision. You just go back to that, you drill that all off season, get back to kind of what you were doing really well. He, we'll say tripled down at this point, because this has been a 3-year process of him changing his stance, getting in closer to the ball. And yeah, I think that if he were to try to do that switch now mentally, it's just not going to click for him, and it's probably going to, become a bigger obstacle. And this is really like probably the worst outcome that we could have gotten, is because, based on all accounts and everything that we saw from the people that we trust that report everything like that, Koo won this job outright. Craig was, inaccurate at times throughout camp. He had more misses and things like that. So it does not sound like Lenny Craig is ready at this point. And that doesn't mean that he won't be. But the plan was clearly to have him develop this year. Koo finishes out the last year of his deal, and then we worry about the kicking situation, after that, and after the season. For this problem to come up week one, it just throws a huge wrench in that development plan, because the last thing the Falcons want to do is throw Lenny out there and then ruin his confidence, because this is a guy who's on a 3-year contract. This is somebody the team believes in, and they don't want to rush him onto the field. So, when it comes to what decision should they make and how do you manage this, it's very tough right now, because, I do understand the argument of being like, hey, we can't just throw Craig in yet. He's also not ready. So do you look around? I think Prater is available right now. That's a name that we could see linked to the Falcons. I think Ben Sauls, who had a pretty good preseason, it looks like he's somebody. He's a rookie, but he looks like somebody that could be an option. Biggest obstacle there is he's a lefty, so you're changing your setup. And that's not the end of the world, but again, that's just another thing to add on top of what's going on. So just a really tough situation all around, managing the kicker spot. The Falcons, I thought, made a good effort to have a developmental plan in place. You just did not expect that, after winning the camp battle, that this is what we would see from him, immediately. And it's just an unfortunate situation all around.
Yeah, and like presumably the Bills will now sign Prater to their active roster, like knowing that other teams are probably going to be interested. So he's probably, I can't imagine that, like, as much as we all know that it's almost certainly over for Younghoe Koo here in Atlanta soon, like eventually, within the next month, more than likely. I don't think, Prater's going to sit around waiting for the Falcons. But he could be available because Tyler Bass probably going to be back within a month or so. So that Prater's very much just like a temporary situation with the Bills. So we could get the Matt Prater reunion tour here in Atlanta. He spent about 2 games with Atlanta, I think, back in his rookie season or his second season. So, shout out that we could get that. He could start and finish his career here in Atlanta. So, that could be an option. But otherwise, there's guys like Eddie Pinheiro who, isn't exactly great, but he's okay, particularly with the shorter kicks, but, not really inspiring. I think there's like Michael Badgley and Zane Gonzalez and Austin Seibert and Cade York and all these guys. Like none of those guys really fill you with confidence at this point. So, there aren't a lot of great opportunities. I will say Seibert last year played 9 games for Washington and was 90%. So, including hitting long of 55, all of his misses were 50 plus. So he attempted 5 50-plus yard field goals and missed 3 of those, but he did hit a 55 in there as well. And it's possible some of those were longer. Like, I didn't look up exactly how many. Like, they could have been crazy long kicks, some of them, I don't know. But he was 100% from anything less than 50. So if all else fails, that's probably the guy I would lean towards. He's still, he's not necessarily young anymore. I think he's like 29, but that's pretty young in kicker years. So, that could be a backup option. But
too, just to kind of add to this with some live reporting coming in, that Raheem Morris, is saying that Younghoe Koo is the kicker right now, but that the Falcons will work out some vets and some up and comers. So, we just gave you guys a good list of names, and I would expect that, you're going to see a couple of those get called in, because you just can't. This issue's now spilled over into this season, and it can't go any further than it has today. It's probably going to be him again next week, but the team is going to most likely cut ties with Koo at some point this season. If we're already we're working out vets and up and comers, like that, you're casting a wide net. And casting a net like that already just kind of tells us that, like, they don't want to deal with this anymore, and you can't blame them.
No, this is a situation where it's going to be a change of scenery thing for Koo, and the Falcons can't afford to wait around. This is a team that's still somewhat on the knife's edge, at least until they get this offense where it needs to be, which it's clearly not where it needs to be yet. So they can't afford to have issues in the kicking game, especially like if you want to talk about this team doesn't have an elite kicker that can hit 55 plus, with regularity or ease. Like that's one thing, but like we can't be missing 40 and 30-yard kicks. Like that's not acceptable. It's just not. So that's kind of where we are, unfortunately. Like if Koo had missed a 55-yarder to win the game, it would have been a little bit more understandable, because that's still, like, as much as teams want to make it out like that's a gimme these days, that's still like a 75% kick for most kickers. Like it's not as automatic as people make it seem. A 36-yarder and a 44-yarder, those are pretty close to 100% kicks for NFL kickers. So you just can't have that. It's unfortunate, but we'll see who they end up bringing in. Maybe some of the names we mentioned, maybe some of the young guys that you mentioned as well, and we'll see how that goes. But let's transition to some positivity here, because there were a couple guys. I think the defense as a whole, the defense's performance was very inspiring to me. This is a tough Bucs offense. We knew they weren't going to be at full strength on the offensive line, and I think they made a very good decision by like just excising Charlie Heck entirely from the offensive line game plan. He's like, from what I saw of Charlie Heck last year as a tackle, very, very not startable. So they shuffled their entire offensive line. Apparently, they've been practicing it for 2 weeks, which, doesn't surprise me, to make it. And it was passable, I think. Obviously, their offensive line wasn't great. They did allow a lot of pressure, and it's not as good as it'll be at full strength. But, I think if they went out there with Charlie Heck at left tackle, that would have just been an outright liability for them. So kudos to them for figuring out that. But I think the Falcons defense played better than expected, particularly against the run. They got pressure, and we saw some really inspiring stuff from some young players and some new faces. So I know you had several guys you wanted to talk about, so I wanted to open up the floor to you first, because I know you just finished your film review. So
yeah, the guy that really stuck out, and I think he popped for everybody, during the game, was Divine Diablo. This was I think we called it a devishly delightful debut for Diablo. And he was all over the field, man. This is what, he was advertised to be. the Falcons made him their priority free agent signing. He was the first guy that they brought into the building. They wanted to lock down and take care of the linebacker position, get somebody that they felt like was a versatile player for Ulbrich. And we saw that. He was, he was just such a smooth mover. And this was something I talked about when we first got him, was you see the coverage ability and just the ability to fly around, change direction, super smooth hips. That's what that safety background is for. Almost had an interception, which was kind of the story of the game for the Falcons defense last night. But, almost had an interception on a nice drop to a pass that was intended for Mike Evans. Sniffed out a screen for a nice tackle for loss, played really well in the run, was just very sound all over the board. And that's kind of what worried me the most about Diablo, was that, sometimes, he could trip up on the fundamentals, but you didn't see that. It didn't look like he was having to think about anything. It didn't really look like, he didn't have any understanding of what was going on. He had full control of the defense and what he was doing out there. And, it's one start, it's one game, but it's very promising. And this looks like that difference maker on the second level of the defense, Kevin, that we've been talking about, where if the Falcons can find a guy who can legitimately operate at the second level, give them somebody in the middle of the field who can actually go sideline to sideline and stay healthy, then this defense can take a step. And overall, outside of, I think, one blown coverage, I thought the defense did a pretty good job. This is a Buccaneers offense that scored 30 points per game last year. Yes, they were down, a starting left tackle, probably the best starting left tackle in football, but still a very good offensive line, still a very competent offense with a good quarterback. And, they were able to stop the run. And this was a running attack that everybody was like, Bucky Irving is going to be, RB1, RB2 this year. He's going to be a must-have. The defense did a really good job taking care of the run. And I was honestly concerned coming in, just because, with this attacking front, we talked about being able to take advantage of momentum, being able to catch guys, over pursuing and things like that. And I really only counted that happening a handful of times last night. We obviously want to see a higher pressure to sack conversion rate, but 40% pressure, fifth most pressure applied in the league. You got to be happy with that week one. And I know people are tired of hearing about just pressure, but you have to get pressure to get sacks. And one of the most promising things is that 4 of those pressures came from James Pierce Jr. on just 15 pass rush snaps. And so, when we look at taking advantage of your opportunities, that's a great example of a young player who, when he was in the game, he was doing everything he could to get to the quarterback, and he was winning a lot of his reps.
Yeah. And, big props to James Pierce. Again, someone who didn't have a super, it was strangely quiet, but effective, not a ton of snaps. The Falcons did stick to their ethos of, they rotated all 4 of their edge rushers almost equally. Floyd had the most snaps with 34, but Ebiketie had 25, Pierce had 23, and Jalen Walker had 26. I mean, these guys all basically played within a couple of snaps of each other, and that's probably going to continue.
It was a big difference from last year.
It was. And I do think at a certain point we may see the primary guys emerge. Probably Leonard Floyd doesn't need to be playing as much, I thought he was fine. But, I think he's a guy that, more than maybe any of these other players, he's someone that probably isn't going to be able to hold up to huge snap counts over the course of a year, given his age at this point. I mean, that's just kind of where he is. So you may want to protect him to some degree. I think some people were like, oh, he was invisible out there. I mean, no, he wasn't invisible. I mean, he didn't really make any significant plays against the run, but he did have 2 pressures, and he wasn't totally, worthless out there, but certainly not as impactful as James Pierce Jr. And Ebiketie, I thought, had a good game too. He had 2 pressures and made some plays against the run. Credited with 3 run stops as well, which is tackles within a certain distance of the line of scrimmage. Did lose contain a couple times, which is frustrating. I think it's something about Baker, man. People don't get it with Baker Mayfield. He's not a runner, but he's just wily as hell. I think people defenses look at him as a pocket passer because he doesn't rush typically. Like they don't design runs for Baker outside of like once a game or something like that. But he is always looking to escape the pocket and just run for a first down. And like I feel like he just lulls defenses into sleep or something. They think he's a little pocket passer, and like he's not. Like he's gonna try to escape, and so guys just get so obsessed with like we got to go and get this sack, and they just forget their discipline, and he's gonna make you pay. So, hopefully it can get a little bit better. Like I mean, they definitely didn't capitalize like they should have, but I think this young pass rush, like it was effective, even though I think the stat sheet wasn't overly impressive.
Yeah, and that's kind of like I think one of the biggest issues when it comes to evaluating these younger guys, especially edge rushers. These are not typically productive players at all in year one, whether they're taken top 10, top 5, top 25, whatever, first round pick. This is kind of part of dealing with that. And so you have to look between the lines. You have to understand, the things that we talked about, like pressure rate and these other things that don't always show up on the stat sheet, but influence plays. It's just going to be something that I think that once you start getting a hang of that, you're going to appreciate the progress that these guys will make throughout the season, because I do think it's very promising that, you're basically saying that on only 15 pass rush attempts for James Pierce, that he's winning his battle 27% of the time. We're not sure that's going to scale, but you know what? If you keep it going, you're going to find out. And so I think that is what's really promising when looking at this. And I know Walker had a quiet game, but this is something you and I talked about. This is the project. Like when we talk about drafting an athletic project that's mostly tools and not refined or anything at all, this is what it looks like. It's going to take time. All I can really say is that the Falcons did not draft a project pass rusher and call it a day. They went out and got a more refined guy in James Pierce. You saw that. We're seeing why, we talked about him as a DPR, as somebody who can come in and actually contribute on pass rushing downs and do the meaningful work, and, let Walker grow, come along. But it's going to take time. And I know people are going to say, well, this is why he needs to get moved to linebacker. Well, Divine Diablo is not letting anybody get moved to linebacker. And I don't want to play Jalen Walker over Divine Diablo at this point anymore. And I don't want to play him over Caden Ellis either, who also had a really good game. So the Falcons, we talked about this. We said if the linebacker room looked like it wasn't up to snuff, maybe there could be some kind of shuffling, whatever. Just doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. And then when you get Troy Anderson back, I don't really see an avenue for Walker to even get playing time in that linebacker room, but he has a legitimate avenue to get play time on this defense. And to your point earlier, Kevin, what really matters and what we were missing last year, the development piece, getting these guys real snaps, getting them more than just 10 snaps a game, 12 snaps a game. These guys got a full workload. This is what they need. Real reps are going to make them better players. And so I will tip my cap to Ulbrich and these guys. It's not all talk about these rookies playing. They are, putting in the work, and they're backing up their words with these snap counts.
Yeah, exactly. And it extends to more than just the pass rush, and we'll get to the secondary here in a second, because there's two rookies that made big impacts in this game as well. But yeah, I just wanted to shout out Divine Diablo one more time, because he was a guy I know you were skeptical of, and I was like, I think I labeled him like the biggest wild card. Took over Troy Anderson's spot as the biggest wild card, because we thought Diablo was actually going to start this year. And right now, if this is any indication, like again, like he could have either been like just not really much of a contributor, or like if he is what the Falcons were certainly hoping he was, he could be a major contributor that changes the complexion of this defense. And right now, that's what it looks like, because last year they did not have a guy with range at linebacker. Like they had some big guys, they had some blitzers, they had some good tacklers, but they didn't really, once Troy Anderson was hurt, like have anyone with range on the back end that could cover downfield. And we saw Diablo run downfield and break up a pass. We saw him with range. This is just, it reminds me of in the preseason watching JD Bertrand, and this is not just a dump on JD Bertrand, but like JD Bertrand is bigger than Divine Diablo, like from a weight perspective, but he doesn't have pop when he contacts guys. He's probably got 5 to 10 pounds on Diablo at this point. Diablo
honestly,
has
I feel like
Diablo has
Diablo
pop.
is the fakest weightlifting I've
Yeah,
ever seen.
yeah.
After seeing him in action,
He
I'm
looks
like, I
jacked.
don't know, man.
He
That
looks
guy
jacked
is
as
like
hell. Yeah.
just
So
ridiculous athlete.
yeah. He. That's what I'm saying though. If you're going to be an undersized linebacker, which is what Jeff Ulbrich likes, like this is Diablo is his type. So I was pretty hopeful. Like Ulbrich knows how to get production out of this type of linebacker. It's like his favorite thing. It's like Jerry Gray and former first round cornerbacks. Like he just knows how to get these guys to a good place and exactly what to do with them. And Diablo is exactly what he wanted. He went out and got him. And if one game is any indication, this is exactly what this defense needed in the middle. Now Caden Ellis can just pass rush. Like we don't need Caden Ellis covering people anymore. We just have Diablo do it. And, former safety background showing up. Love it. Just great, as good of a debut as you could hope for from Divine Diablo. And speaking of great debuts, 2 rookies in the secondary, Xavier Watts, Billy Bowman Jr. both started. I thought Watts would start for sure. Bowman seemed to come on strong towards the end of camp, and ended up taking over that role. What did you think about the 2 rookies in their first NFL performance?
Yeah, the Energizer Bunny, that is Billy Bowman getting the cleanup sack on the blitz. Love seeing that. That's kind of like, I'm sure that was like his favorite play of the game, was just getting a blitz and run straight into the teeth of the offensive line, because he's an absolute sicko that loves violence. And, I thought it was pretty promising. He got beat, on a step. Is a drag route, I think, to Igbuka at one point in the game. But other than that, we didn't really hear his name called a ton. I thought the defense and Ulbrich did a pretty good job of not asking too much of him. I think that they ran a lot of favorable coverage that didn't really stick him in too many situations where he had to guard Igbuka or somebody like that. So I think matchup wise, they kind of got what they wanted out of Bowman from this game. I think it was a good, starting point. And, for him as a player, where he's going to have the most room for growth is going to be, as a coverage guy. Nickel, it just asks a little bit more of you, especially from a man coverage perspective. When you're playing up closer to the line, you just have a lot more going on than when you're the safety and everything like that. And you're a little further back from the defense. It changes how you read things. It changes how, the play evolves and develops around you. But I thought he did a really good job showing his natural football instincts. The guy just kind of knows, has a nose for the football, and it seemingly makes one, big play a game. And that was that sack. And then, man, Xavier Watts, I'll get us started, but I'll let you carry it on from here. Just look like a veteran. I'd call it a veteran performance. Didn't make, I couldn't really see any mistakes when I went back and looked at the all 22. It's always hard to know for sure, what the coverage call is, but we usually get a pretty good idea. And it just didn't look like, anything that transpired negatively was on him. And, I think he had like almost three interceptions. And, we mentioned that earlier, like we got to see these turnovers convert, because if this defense can play like that, something we said was like the 2016 defense was very opportunistic when it came to turnovers. When people talk about that Super Bowl defense that wasn't really that great, but they always seemingly made a play. And that's kind of like what Ulbrich and these guys talk about, is really pressing, is really, going after the football. And I think we saw that from Watts. I think we saw that from Diablo and a couple of the other guys out there. But man, just a really sensational debut for Xavier Watts, who had no business being, I think it was like at the 96 slot when he got picked. But the Falcons, I think, really got a gem there.
Yeah. I mean, like, Billy Bowman first, like you said, I think our expectations for him were lower. Like, not that I was expecting him to be bad, but just that it's a lot to ask a safety to convert to full-time nickel slot player. and come out against Emeka Egbuka like a good percentage of the time, or Sterling Shepard, who like Sterling Shepard's not like a great starting receiver anymore, but he's still like a very savvy veteran who's going to give a like rookie corner fits. You know, Sterling Shepard is not ancient. He's not washed. He's just not, you know, Chris Godwin, right? I mean, there's just different levels of player there. But Bowman was largely fine in coverage. You know, I think he got a little bit wild as a tackler, you know, a little bit aggressive, but that's what you want from him, and he's going to hone that down. And like you said, the pass rush rep was fantastic. I think he ended up, that was his one pressure, and he got the sack, and he does look absolutely shot out of a cannon coming off the line of scrimmage. So that's definitely going to be, that slot blitz is going to be a weapon for this Falcons defense going forward. And you said it with Xavier Watts, it honestly looked exactly like I expected it to. Like, I just had such high expectations for Watts ever since he was drafted. Just he that's just who he was in college, just professional level player who understood pretty much every coverage scheme, always plays under control, and is always around the football. And yeah, he should have had 2 picks in this game. And he will have interceptions very soon. Like, I have no doubt that he will. I believe he will lead the team in interceptions this year. I still feel that. Like, he had 2 pass breakups, I think, in this game already, you know, which is elite. For safeties, like, you don't always get chances to get pass breakups. Interestingly, also, Divine Diablo had a pass breakup, and I believe he had 2 pass breakups all of last year. So already looks like he's being put in more advantageous positions here for the Falcons. But Watts just was so under control, had a critical tackle to stop a huge gain on a screen where he just got the ankle and brought down, I forget who it was, but that was I think it was Rachaad White, whereas like if he doesn't make that shoestring tackle, that's a house call.
That was a touchdown.
Yeah, and he just knifed in, got just enough of him. It's exactly what you want. 6 tackles, tied for the team lead in tackles with 0 missed tackles. You know, and you love to see it. And like, that's one thing I think you could look at is like the secondary was tackling phenomenal. Like these are the, you know, whatever you think of PFF, like the run defense and tackling grades for the secondary. Like Watts was a 68.6 in run defense with an 82 tackling grade. Terrell, 82 run defense, 79 tackling grade. Mike Hughes, 69 run defense, 76 tackling grade. Jesse Bates, 79 run defense, 83 tackling grade. Everyone in the secondary. Billy Bowman, you know, was lower, but again, like, you know, he's still working on some things. And he had 3 tackles, didn't miss any tackles. You know, it is what it is. I don't know exactly what they didn't like about his run defense. I'd have to go back and watch it, but maybe he was out of position or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the whole secondary was tackling really well. And like, honestly, like everyone was tackling pretty well. The only people that weren't tackling as well were the pass rushers in the backfield, unfortunately. But Baker Mayfield's slippery, man. I don't know what to tell people. People act like, oh, he's like 6 foot. Like, why the hell can't they get him down? You go try to tackle Baker Mayfield. You tell me.
Almost works to his advantage.
It is. Too. He's just slippery. Like, there's just no other, like, there's a reason he has a low sack rate every single year, even with all these offensive lines. It's just he's slippery as hell. Like, he's very difficult to get on the ground. So, not necessarily making excuses, but you know, hey, it is what it is. But secondary, I think like we were hoping and depending on them to be the strength of this team, and I think they showed that they absolutely are the strength of this team.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point about the tackling, because they were one of the worst tackling units like all of last year. And so I think that, you know, that was promising to see in the first game, to have that kind of cleaned up, and you know, we hope that continues.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone else you want to touch on the defense? Like, I know there was some guys on the interior.
Yeah. You know, it is one of those things where it's like super unfortunate that they had this play show up at the end, but you know, Ruggiero actually had, you know, in my opinion, a pretty solid debut. You know, he was able to push the pocket a couple of times and generate some pressure. I thought he was pretty stout in the run. You know, there's still a couple of plays where he's kind of, you know, trying to figure it out. But you know, for being billed as this really big project, and for somebody who had, you know, sat on the bench a lot of the time last year, and now it's like, hey, you're going to be one of our, you know, main rotational guys. I thought that he had a pretty good game. And like, that penalty, obviously it sucks. And it was not a violent hit or anything like that. It's just a careless play. It's one where like you could see it on his face on the replay when it happened, that he was like, oh man, can't let my body weight fall forward like that. And it stinks. And, some of those mistakes, that's kind of the trade-off, when you're playing younger guys. And it's also kind of the side effect of like waiting to play some of your younger guys too. Like, he's getting acclimated. He's getting, everything, together, understanding the game, feel the flow and whatnot. But, I thought Rukaroro had a pretty solid debut, and we clean up that penalty. I think we're going to be all right, and he's got a lot of good things that he can build off of going into next week.
Yeah. I got soured on him because I watched him get kind of caved in early a couple times against double teams, which like that's something that he'll just have to learn how to handle. He's not the biggest. Well, he is huge. Like, don't get me wrong.
He's huge.
He doesn't carry a lot of weight.
Tackle type. Yeah.
So he got caved on some early plays, and I was just like, oh man, I'm getting pissed off. But I think looking back, he was fine. And actually did make several good run stops in this game. And also had 2 pressures, which is nice to see. I think he was like I think he was the highest graded interior pass rusher for the whole team. So that's nice to see. Brandon Dorless was solid. Again, he had a quiet day on the stat sheet, but played 30 snaps, was graded positively on all of them. So, he's someone that was a contributor. I think Lakeil London played a handful of snaps and was decent. And then Onyemata, like PFF just like hated Onyemata's day. I didn't really notice him. Like, I didn't think he made plays necessarily, but I thought they were mostly asking him to just eat space in the middle, and I thought he was fine. But yeah, PFF hit him with like a 29, which
they
like,
gave him a brutal game, and
I'm not really sure about that, but yeah. Yeah, especially I know you just watched the
performance
film.
That the Bucs had at the end of the day too. Yeah. It's kind of like, we know the Bucs did not run the ball really well, so it's like, was he really that bad? Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think so. And I think like one other player that I think had a pretty good game. He did give up a couple of catches, but AJ Terrell, man. Thought that he had like a pretty strong start, especially to this game. It was really sticky. Evans got, I think like 1 or 2 first downs, but like outside of that, we didn't really hear. It was the Emeka Egbuka show. It was all about getting him going. So, Terrell, good job holding up there on the outside. And yeah, I think those are the guys that, like, looking back, it's nice to be talking so much about the defense, because there are a lot of guys, on the offensive side of the ball when we get into it here that did a lot. But this defense, in my opinion, and like, we talked about, they had that one blown coverage, but when you look at how the offense performed after the first drive, all the way through until the fourth quarter, this defense kept the team in the game. Like they didn't let it get out of hand. The offense was able to be within striking distance, and we just talk about a couple of those things that go their way, go a little bit differently, and the outcome could have been a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. I think the defense deserves their flowers for this one. This is a tough opponent to open against. Josh Grizzard, I think, was pretty clear he was a downgrade from Liam Cohen. I would have been terrified to go up against Liam Cohen's offense in this. And Liam Cohen's offense made the Panthers just look absolutely silly with the Jaguars. But so I think Grizzard was definitely a downgrade from a play calling standpoint, but the Bucs are no slouches, and even missing, their Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs, they've got depth in the offensive line. They clearly have depth in the receiving room. Shout out to, I saw a stat, this is irrelevant, but like 28% of people started Emeka Egbuka in fantasy. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you guys doing? How did you what? I started Emeka Egbuka in 5 of 5 fantasy leagues. Like, how there's no better time to start this man. Chris Godwin's not playing. Jalen McMillan's not playing, guys. What are you doing? So I don't know. I don't know how people bothered to draft him and just didn't start him this week. But
I'm a real sicko, and I had Isaac Tesla in my.
Oh, there you go.
He rewarded me at the end with that touchdown, because we were sitting. We're not sitting too pretty there till the whole game, but then he hauls in the disgusting pick. But Yeah, man. Put some respect on these rookies' names.
Yeah.
Buka, unfortunately, Bucs got a good one. It's just another receiver that we're gonna have to deal with. This demon's gonna have to deal with for a few years now.
Yep. Gonna have to figure that one out among other things. But yeah, going over to the offensive side, I think the biggest bone I have to pick is with Zac Robinson. But maybe we should save that till the end and talk about some other things. I think the offensive line is probably the place that I want to go first, just because I think you look at, like, it kind of went as expected, in my opinion, that the pass protection was mostly fine. Like, Elijah Wilkinson was the weak link. That was not a surprise. 5 pressures allowed, and he allowed the only sack. Everybody else did pretty well. I think Jake had some tough moments, but still, pretty solid overall. I think Newsel had two pressures allowed as well. But everybody else pretty solid in pass pro. But like, the run blocking was just, nobody could hit a run block to save their life. Like, funny enough, I think Wilkinson was credited with the best run blocking performance, and they only ran one, I think, outside zone, which is like, what? Like, you don't have to stop. Like, this is just, that would be getting into the Zac Robinson conversation. But, I think at this point it looks like Wilkinson can probably hold down the fort until Storm Norton comes back. But the run game, like, it very concerning. On many levels. But how did you feel about the offensive line as a whole in this one?
Yeah, it was funny because it didn't happen. I think they came in like the second or third quarter, but when Elijah Wilkinson got his like false starts, I was like, "There's my guy," because that's, if you don't know, that is unfortunately Elijah Wilkinson's calling card. And them happening twice in the same drive. You're at home. It's not. There's no reasoning for it.
Just got him out of the way all at once right there.
Got him out of the way. And so, outside of that, kind of like you said, Kevin, pretty serviceable day without a lot of help because, something that we saw was the O-line was asked to protect very similarly the way they were last year. A lot of true pass sets, not a lot of play action or anything like that. There was some chip help at times, but not as much as like we were anticipating. They seemed like pretty comfortable with just being like, we think with this can work. And work is, technically, yes, it did. I think the passing game was functional with the amount of protection that there was, but kind of mentioned it when it comes to run blocking. I don't know if this is an outside zone team anymore. I don't know if this, I don't know if that's just the right scheme. I don't know if it's the right scheme to marry with pistol if we're not going to marry the play action concepts that go with it. I don't know if this means they should be looking more at gap or what, but it kind of feels like wide zone has run its course, and the players that they have to rely on now, which they're having to rely more on that left side of the line. We're going to be looking more in Bergeron's direction and Newsill's direction and things like that. They don't seem to be very well suited. Bergeron is struggling to get to the second level and to get off his blocks. He's having trouble reaching when he needs to cross face with the interior lineman that's in his gap and in his path, and he's getting blown off the ball here too often. I think what really surprised me the most yesterday was how much they struggled with stunts, and that's kind of something you and I talked about. When you lose Drew Dahlman, you're not just losing a center, you're losing the guy responsible for keeping everybody in check, communicating, passing guys off as those stunts, as people are crossing face, calling things out. We did not see Newsiel really fill in that role as well in this first game. He struggled with stunts. Thought Bergeron struggled with stunts, and even Lindstrom got a couple of times. And some of those, it literally just looks like we're not talking to each other on the field. We're not kind of doing the things that they were able to do on a consistent basis. So Todd Bowles definitely didn't make it easy. He was he's Todd Bowles. He's going to do what he does. He's going to send the house a couple of times. He's going to throw some exotic blitzes where it looks like he's got, all the pressure's coming from the right. It comes from the left. We're dropping DTs. And so, credit to Michael Penix, who I think handled all of that really well. And he also helped the O-line out, because something we were talking about a lot last year was the fact that they blocked for a quarterback that could not move in the pocket. Penix broke out of quite a few sacks, or should be sacks, did a lot of work with his feet, did some things that, now nobody can, I think, kind of diminish what they saw in the Carolina game at the end of the year. He's legit. And, shout out to all Trey phases. We talked about Penix's legs being the biggest difference maker in the red zone this year, and we saw that. And I think his O-line really appreciates it.
Yeah, no, this is a good way to transition into Penix too, which he deserves all the credit. And everyone's saying like, oh, well, he was missing some throws. I don't want to hear about that. All right, like we're not like be there in just a second. So yeah, the offensive line, agree with what you said. It run blocking is a big problem, and I think look, Bergeron's a huge guard. Newsel, I think, has always looked really good when they've asked him to do like man gap stuff. I think this is a situation where it's like, look, this O-line, you didn't want to pay the premium money to bring back the best zone blocking center in the NFL, so we may have to diversify the run game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. They did run inside a lot more in this game. I don't know if I would have done it as much at Vita Vea. That wasn't really what I was asking for, but shout out, I guess, that they did seem more willing to run inside. But I think you're onto something with that Bergeron just might be a much better gap scheme guard. And they may need to go that route to just stop asking him to do so much, covering so much ground, or get him to slim down more, because he's a tackle sized guard. And just covering that much ground with the footwork that you need to be able to do it effectively, he just hasn't been able to do it. So maybe the more tight space stuff, more pulls and counters and things like that might be good for him, where he can use his mass to his advantage instead of having it work against him in this situation. Yeah. So also Kalijah Kancey is a very unique defensive tackle to have to block on those plays. He is incredibly quick. And I think he especially gave Matthew Bergeron hell trying to reach him. So, we'll see how it looks against more traditional defensive tackles, how he fares. But yeah, not an inspiring start for the run game. And obviously, the Zac Robinson conversation, please stop using Charlie Werner like that. I like that play where you have Werner sort of knife in and off the motion, but that should be every once in a while we do that, not every single play. You just watch Charlie Werner, that's where they're gonna, and it's they're just gonna follow Charlie Werner. It's they saw that work really well last year, and they're that's gonna be our staple now. You can't do that. It's too obvious, guys. I'm sorry. I enjoyed it the first time. And then the second time I was like, okay, that was fast to see that again. We only saw that 4 times last year. And then it was the 6th time they ran it in this game, I was like, okay, stop. Get some help. Okay, somebody else needs to inject some run plays into this offense. But Penix is where I really want to go here. And how do you describe it? Heroic, is basically the word that comes to mind for me, where and this is we've seen 4 full games out of Michael Penix. Every time he is doing what it takes to win the football game. And for the most part, the Falcons have failed him every 3 out of 4 times. But there's one constant, and is that every single time at the end of these games, he's putting them in a position to win. So, and then the rest of the team has to get it done. But to me, it's was he perfect? No. If you're expecting Michael Penix to be perfect, you're crazy. That's not what you should be expecting. Was Baker Mayfield perfect? Was anyone perfect this week? Yeah. You look at the bet. Justin Herbert had some off throws and he had a great game. Josh Allen had a couple misses. He had a fantastic game. Lamar Jackson had some great plays. Also missed on some throws. You shouldn't be looking at a game and being oh, well, he missed some throws, so it wasn't a good game. every quarterback misses throws in every single game. That's just how it goes when you make 30, 40 passing attempts. Like, you're not going to hit all of them unless you're a robot or something. Michael Penix didn't have a perfect first half, did miss on some throws, but like when they let him throw, like, I thought for the most part, he was doing a fantastic job. He had to make a lot of quick decisions and navigate a lot of trash. Like, the Bucs defense is not simplistic. They throw a bunch of blitz looks at you. They drop guys unexpectedly. The whole point is to cause chaos and make the quarterback. This is honestly a very good warm-up for Minnesota next week, because these two defenses have some similarities in how they operate with how much pressure they like to send at you. But like, I thought he made good decisions. I thought he just knifed up the blitz when he had to. He found the hot read. He was able to avoid pressure and make plays. And then at the end of the game, he just, I mean, there's nothing more you could ask. Like, I mean, just completely, like, I will do whatever it takes. Like you said, like, this is not a guy who's known for running the football. Really hasn't done it much since Indiana. And like, just looks like a natural runner to me. Like, the body control on those two plays that were absolutely critical plays, both of them. First to get the first down, and the second to get the touchdown. Like, that is special, like, body control and kinesthetic, like, intelligence. Like, this, like, I mean, I don't think we should be like running him, but like you said, Tre'Shon, like, his legs should absolutely be a part of this red zone offense. Like, we should be potentially calling some read option plays, like not like all over the field. This isn't Lamar Jackson we're talking about, but in the red area where you got to have it, we should absolutely be running Michael Penix from time to time, or let him run a rollout like a lot of these quarterbacks do. And if nobody's home, just walk in. Like, I mean, he's clearly got the athletic talent. He's got the kinesthetic intelligence. He knows how to protect himself. Like, he didn't take big hits on those runs either. Like, he did slide a little early on that one, but again, I'd rather he slide early than get absolutely demolished, which was probably going to happen on that one where he slid early. If he didn't dive, which he was clearly not in a position to start diving in time, and he just ran that through the first down, there were two Bucs like that were going to smash him. We don't want that to happen for one first down in one game, guys. It's not worth it. But what did you think about Penix's performance? Because I just can't believe people are like nitpicking it. It's like, this was so far from anything close to the issue with this game was Penix missing on some throws. Like, he did everything in his goddamn power to get this team over the finish line. It's not his fault they didn't come back and pat him on the back.
Yeah. Boy, it feels like Matt Ryan's back in town. It is, it's very funny. I think that people are trying to confirm their priors, when they say things like he missed some passes. Well, it's like, okay, well, let's talk about that, because the completion percentage does not tell the full story here. We know for sure we saw multiple drops this game, and I'm not gonna call anybody out, but to your comment about who was perfect, Bijan Robinson wasn't perfect. Other Drake London wasn't perfect. Nobody is going to be. It's all about what are you able to do after that? What happens after things don't go your way? And Penix showed us, man, that he is not going to blink. When we look at his adjusted completion percentage, which accounts for drops and everything like that, we go from a 64.3% completion percentage to a 74.4% completion percentage, which is telling us that Michael Penix is doing just fine. He's getting the ball to his guys. It's catchable. On the couple misses that he had, guess what? We're not throwing near picks. We're not throwing turnover-worthy throws or anything like that. If we're trying to throw the ball high to the top shelf where only the receiver can get it, it misses high to that top shelf where only he could have gotten it. Those are the things that even last year when I talked about going through Penix's film, when you see how he misses, when you watch his process, I think you did a really good job there, Kevin, of kind of talking through it from just the entertainment perspective. This guy is an athlete. Everything is calculated. He's not fumbling around out here, and it's not just happening by chance. He's making it happen. We've seen him, orchestrate and kind of go through multiple game-winning, game-tying drives. When he talked at the end of the game, and they asked him about that rushing play, he talks about on that drive, yeah, they were showing man looks the entire drive. I knew I was going to have an opportunity at some point to be able to use my legs, and I was able to take advantage of that play and do so. And that kind of shows you how much preparation, how much work that he's putting in, and it's paying off. And at the end of the day, Michael Penix gave his team the opportunity to win. He kept them in when he had to. We mentioned earlier that, yeah, the offense had, a rough stretch in the second and third quarter, but he did not do anything, in my opinion, to, contribute to that stretch of tough play. He was doing what was asked of him, and the offense was dealing with penalty issues. We had way too many penalties last night, and we're dealing with missed kicks and all the like. And so, at the end of the day, we want to get the win, man. And, that's what everybody wants to see happen. But the most important thing this year, and people might call me crazy, the most important thing this year is Penix showing that he is the franchise quarterback. This is 1 year of Michael Penix's potential 10+ year long career, and this is probably going to be the most, or if not one of the most important ones, because we need to make sure that he is developing, that he is growing, and that he's getting the best coaching and everything that he can, so that regardless of whatever's happening around him, he's able to function. He's able to, pull the team out of the gutter, because that's what franchise quarterbacks do. You saw it last night with Josh Allen. You saw it before Josh Allen with Lamar Jackson. You've seen it for years with Patrick Mahomes. You mentioned it. We saw it with Herbert. That's what the great quarterbacks of this league do. They all bounce back, even though they make mistakes in that game. They do not let those mistakes be the ones that cost them, the final outcome. And it's just, there's nothing worse than your young quarterback having to talk about his kicker week one. It's just a bummer. It shouldn't have gone down like that. It should have been a celebratory moment for the team to rally around what was a great drive from Penix. But, any fans that are feeling, any type of negative way about Penix, I honestly just need to kind of check in with reality. Like, I don't really know what else to tell you than, get over it. Like, he had a great game. And, anytime that we're talking about the kid's fourth start. And so far, the story of Michael Penix is that he's going to put your team in position to win, and his kicker's going to miss the kick. That's the outcome in half of his games right now. And it's just super unfortunate.
Yeah. It's like, my first question is why, and my second statement is stop. Like, it's just, we have so many other things to complain about. I don't know how you could come away from that performance and try to like I've just seen people like, oh, stop like lifting up Penix, like stop getting too hyped about this. It was mediocre. It's like, just go away. Like we don't have very many things to be happy about in Atlanta right now. Okay. Like there's not, like we just lost week 1. We're on the back foot against the Bucs. We have the most brutal stretch of the schedule coming up. Like, let people be happy about their young quarterback looking good and doing everything in his damn power to try to win this football game. Like that we can hang our hats on that at the very least. But one more guy I want to shout out, Kyle Pitts. Like Kyle Pitts has been getting dunked on for years about a lack of effort, that he doesn't care about his routes, whatever. That was not the case at all today. Like Pitts looks like a different player to me. Like there wasn't deep opportunities necessarily, but that like in years past, it's like they wouldn't throw him anything short, or he wasn't getting open short. Like today, like Sunday, he was finding ways to get open on that like Penix touchdown run. Pitts like just worked himself open and was right there for like a shovel pass or anything. He was ready for Penix to help, like to be open. He was available and open. That was just an example. Like in years past, he's just like, he didn't have the confidence. You could feel it. Like he could feel that the quarterback didn't trust him and they just weren't going to throw him the ball. That's not the case. Like he absolutely has the trust of Penix. In crunch time, Penix was looking for Pitts, and Pitts was looking for Penix as well, like finding ways to get open, making himself available, like hit sticking guys, like I mean, stiff arming guys. Like, I mean, I don't remember the last time we saw Kyle Pitts stiff arm someone and get yards after the catch. I think he's healthy. I think he's jazzed up. And I think for the first time in years, feels like he has the confidence and the trust of his quarterback. And that's a two-way street. And I think we might be looking at Kyle Pitts' return this year. Is it ever going to be as good as he was as a rookie? I don't know about that, guys. But, like, I think this will be the season where he absolutely is a top 10 NFL tight end. Like, he was almost an NFL top 10 tight end last year. So I think it'll be better than last year. But, like, it just, yeah, I think Pitts he looks jazzed up and looks like he's ready to step into a major role. If thankfully it sounds like Drake's thing is going to be a pain tolerance issue, and hopefully he'll be okay with the shoulder sprain. I think Darnell Mooney's really close. Like, I think Darnell Mooney was close to playing Sunday. I suspect he will play in week 2. But if, like, it looks like Pitts is ready to be the third target, and was. Like, he was ahead of McLeod. Like, so shout out to Kyle Pitts for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys were not making it through this Tuesday Takes without hearing about Kyle Pitts showing up. And he did, man. It was awesome to see. It was so clear that his confidence is at a totally different level. Just the contested catches. Like, when we talk about making those catches in traffic, there's one that got called back because it was a penalty. They called it on Pitts for illegal motion, but somebody else was moving because he was the motion man. He made a tough catch in traffic, and I'm like, that's a catch where I don't know if Pitts is making that, the last 2 years, because I don't know if he trusts that his quarterback isn't leading him into a big hit from a linebacker or anything. It didn't look like Pitts was thinking about any of that. He was out there functioning, and he was, I think, like the most reliable target that Penix had. He caught like everything sans one target that came his way. That target was like a ball that was thrown like way over his head because Penix was just like escaping pressure. We saw tough hands. We saw the effort, kind of like you mentioned, on that Bijan run. It wasn't a huge block, but he turns around. Oh, Bijan has the ball. He's in space. I'm going to flip around, and now I'm going to take care of the DB in front of me, going to do just enough to wall him off. And then you saw Casey Washington do the same thing at the next level, and then Bijan scampers in. Those are the details. Like, when this team has talked about Kyle and they're saying, we love what we're seeing from him right now because he's taking care of the details. He's doing the little things right. And to your point, in the red zone on the Michael Penix play, if Pitts does not put Levante David on his rear end, which he does with that route, then he does not get Antoine Winfield's attention. And you'll see on that play, Winfield gets held up just a half second because he sees Penix charging forward and he thinks Penix is going to flick the ball to Pitts. He makes a little half step towards Pitts. He realizes that Penix is going to take it in. It's too late. And that's the effort. That's doing all the little things right. You don't know if you're going to get that ball, but you're still going to do everything you can to get open. And yeah, it was a really encouraging start because you and I also talked about, like, well, let's see Kyle Pitts get used in this very specific way. Let's see him be this vertical threat. Let's see this and that. And he wasn't used in that way. They used him like a tight end. He was featured in line. He still had, his opportunities as a receiver split out and things like that. But, he functioned, I think, the way that Zac Robinson really envisioned him functioning last year. And I would still like to see an uptick of vertical opportunities because that's when he's going to be at his best. And he had a few calls, but I think that once we get Mooney back, I think the team will be able to dial up maybe a little bit more of those opportunities for him to kind of play off one another. But it was a really promising game one for Pitts. The fantasy people are going to be happy, but we don't really care because those are the loudest critics half the time, not watching what he's doing. But it was a really good effort, really good performance.
Yeah, love to see it. And I started him in fantasy. But I mean, if you didn't draft Pitts this year, what are you doing? I mean, he was basically free.
This was the year.
This was
hands,
the year.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's who cares if he doesn't pan out? I'm taking him in the 14th round at this point. So shout out to Kyle Pitts, again, especially against the Bucs. Kyle Pitts against the Bucs is absolute money. So we'll see if we can continue this against non-Bucs teams. But I think Pitts was great. Love to see that. Last thing we'll talk about. This we saved it for the final segment here. The Zac Robinson conversation. Like, I know you have particular issues with it because this is a lot of the same things you brought up last year, and it doesn't seem like much change has happened with regards to the way this offense is constructed.
Yeah, it's like I just did like the red zone breakdown of the 2024 offense and talking about, what can we expect to see? Nothing. We can expect to see nothing new. And that's what was really weird. We talked about last year that, he was managing two different quarterbacks. We're talking about managing a quarterback coming off a major injury as well, looking for solutions. How do we mitigate some of these things? And I thought, it was a pretty good performance year one. Now you have a guy who, like we've seen, is mobile. They've seen in practice that he's pretty mobile. He can do a little bit more for you. We're still seeing the same tendencies. We're still seeing the same, attachment to formations. They started this game out with they ran 11, they ran 12 on that first drive in their 3 plays. They ran 2 different personnel groupings. They used play action on the touchdown to Bijan. And it was like, oh, wow, holy smokes, this team is legit. Zac Robinson's going to take that next step. They ended the day with 9 total play action plays. Penix went 3 for 8 for 53 yards, one of which was that 50-yard touchdown. 0 play action called in the red zone. Zac, what are we doing, man? We're just banging our head against the wall here, and we're making things so much more difficult than they have to be. Thought it was, the answer for dealing with Wilkinson, I think, in pass protection was, well, we don't need play action. We're just going to run a lot of quick game. And okay, sure, quick game worked. I liked watching Penix, pick apart the underneath, but play action helps you get those deep shots. The Falcons only took 7 deep shots. They did not connect on any of them. We saw, Kadero Hodge miss a beauty that was dropped into the bread basket.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is a tough pass to see go uncaught. We saw Antoine Winfield make an Antoine Winfield play on a shot to Casey Washington. And so, the Falcons didn't give themselves a ton of opportunities to make, big plays happen. It was just kind of like, well, I hope we can dump it off to Bijan and he'll make, a crazy play for us. And hey, that worked once. But you need to give your guys yak opportunities. You need to set them up with drag routes that get them moving, and so they can then take advantage of that. When I look at how they attacked this defense, they did not throw at the middle of the field at all, which, again, they didn't really attack the middle of the field a lot last year, but we didn't see, a lot of level concepts. We didn't see much mesh. We didn't see, we didn't even see a ton of slants. It was corners, outs. It was the same thing as last year. And so if you're defending that, it's probably like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we know what you guys like to run. This is what you did in both games last year. So Todd Bowles is now in a situation where he's like, okay, cool. So all I have to do is sell out against the run when you're in pistol, because you run when you're in pistol. And again, the issue is not pistol. The issue is that when the Falcons get in pistol, they're going to run. You can throw the ball out of pistol. They threw that touchdown to Bijan out of pistol. You can do whatever you want. You can run play action. You can do any of it. And I don't think pistol has any effect on the type of lineman you have. I've seen a lot of people say, well, the other teams that run pistol are like the Ravens or the Chiefs and things like that. And I don't think we have those type of linemen. And it's like, that's not what influences your formation. And we're not really getting a good reason, though, from Zac Robinson as to why he is so attached to pistol. They're efficient at it. I think they ran it the most out of anybody. They were top 10 in EP. They were 10th in EPA per play when running out of pistol. So, okay, you're efficient at moving the ball. We saw that last year. But when they were in gun, 38 plays, they passed for, over 70%. When they were in pistol, it was like 13 passes to 17 runs. So a somewhat better distribution, but not really mixing it up when you only have a handful of runs coming out of gun. And then they only ran 2 plays under center. And that's like when we were talking about this earlier, what makes the wide zone sticking to it so frustrating is that the wide zone has to have play action. It's arguably the second most important part of that run scheme, because the whole point of wide zone is that you're pulling a defense east and west. You are creating this momentum that you want to then use against them when you rip off play action, you come backside or anything like that. We're not seeing that happen. We're not seeing these concepts get married together. And Zac Robinson asked way too much of his players. And at this point, that is a consistent theme, and it's something that is going to have to get worked out, because if London is going to be a little bit, injured, well, that's your best blocking receiver. You can't have Ray McCloud blocking. We saw that happen yesterday. We talked about that extensively over the offseason, and that Ray McCloud is a great player. He is not a great blocker. That is not the best way to use him. You're setting him up to fail by putting him in those positions. Still tried to get it done, still tried to make it happen. And so Zac's going to have to adjust. He's going to have to lean on some of these, basic concepts. But for some reason, he is just very, he's just very stuck in his ways at this point, which is odd for somebody that's so young, that comes from an offense that kind of, preached innovation, that preached, not just preached innovation, but preached marrying the run with the pass. It doesn't really seem like he has a full grasp on that at this stage, and it's just going to make everybody's life a lot harder on that side of the football.
Yeah, there's not really any good reason for it. The only thing I can point to is like last year we saw something similar in week 1, which is just a very uninspired offensive scheme, and then they changed it after week 1. And I wonder, I'm hoping that will be the case here, where they're like, well, we were thinking about doing this, but I think we can see the flaws with it. We need to kind of go in a different direction here. Because I agree. It's like, there's nothing wrong with running a bunch of pistol or running a bunch of shotgun. There is something wrong with, I think shotgun, they passed it like 70% of the time or something like that. Like you can't, like 13-17 in the pistol, that's fine. Like that's not really a big deal. But like you can't just run shotgun and exclusively pass out of it. Like it's too predictable. Like NFL defenses are too smart. Like you have to keep them guessing, and that's exactly what play action does. And I know you mentioned it on Twitter, but just for the people that haven't figured this out yet, like people were like, well, the Falcons weren't running the ball well, so they couldn't use play action. That is not true. That has been thoroughly debunked year after year. The threat of the run doesn't matter. Defenses have to respect the run, whether or not you threaten it. It doesn't really matter. If you run play action, somebody's got the responsibility of that running back, and they have to go cover them or go follow them, regardless of whether they think you're a good rushing team or not. That's just disciplined football. Someone's going to have to react to that play action. So no matter what, if you run play action, you're trading, a little bit of extra time at the snap that the quarterback can't have to see the field for defense having to decide whether it's a run or a pass. And I think we've seen played out year after year that confusion, that even if it's like a momentary confusion on the part of the defense, matters way more than that extra half second that the quarterback gets to scan the field. Especially for a guy like Penix, who I think is pretty good about reading the field. I know some people were complaining, he wasn't fast enough with his reads. Spare me, people. Like, I don't think you know what the hell you're looking at personally, but okay. It's just, they have to run play action. You can't be an offense in the NFL that doesn't run play action. You can't do that anymore. Like we've evolved to the point where everyone should be running play action. And it's not like the Falcons didn't run any. I think they were like 22nd in play action, which isn't like horrid, but this team should be leading the NFL in play action or close to it. Like, I don't see any good reason not to. It helps out your offensive line, which we know is not in a great state at the moment. It helps both your run and pass game. If the Falcons have Bijan Robinson in the backfield, teams can't afford to ignore the play action. They simply can't. Like, you can't not watch Bijan Robinson. He's too dangerous. So I agree. I don't really understand this aversion to play action. You can run play action out of the pistol. You can run it out of the shotgun. You definitely can run it out from under center. I mean, I know Penix didn't play much under center in college, so maybe this is sort of like we want him to be comfortable. But like Penix has run under center before. This is not like he's not somebody who's never played under center. He doesn't look like he can't run under center like this. I don't really get
a whole off season too, if that was your concern.
Right. Like, I mean, you should be practicing running from under center too. So it's bizarre to me. And I hope that they'll clean it up and continue to iterate. I think that was something that we did see Zac Robinson. He did make some changes over the course of last year. I think many of them were good, but there's still lots of things that need to change and improve. And I get that like the offensive line getting thrown into disarray probably limited some of the more aggressive changes they would have liked to make. Maybe they would have spent these last couple of weeks working on some more wrinkles or adding some more red zone plays. Instead, they're like, we got to get Elijah Wilkinson up to speed at right tackle and just practice our bread and butter stuff, which honestly, that looked like the run game. Like we would have liked to have practiced some more exotic looks, but we just felt like with like our offensive line where it is, we're just going to have to run some bread and butter stuff to get started here because, we don't trust everyone to do their job. It's unfortunate, obviously, the timing of the McGarry injury there, but I just hope they can get beyond that because that run game was so predictable. Charlie Werner didn't play well either. Like he didn't hit his blocks.
It was a bad game, yeah.
And so you can't you have to diversify and you have to run play action. It really shouldn't be that crazy of a statement to make. And the good news is lots of time to change and implement that. But I agree with you. It feels like this is the offense they would have called for Kirk Cousins. And it's like, no, we shouldn't be calling an offense for Kirk Cousins. We should be calling an offense for Michael Penix. He can move. He can execute play action. You could do RPOs with Mike Penix. Not that I think you should be doing that all the time or anything, but there's no reason you can't. He's got plenty of mobility, and he's perfectly capable of making those quick reads that you need to execute those plays and making the right decision. So we have to, I think, treat Penix with a little bit more respect and allow him to do some of these things, trust him to be able to do play action and be able to make his reads off of play action. I know it takes a little bit longer to run play action. It slows down your passing game just a tick, but I think Penix deserves to have that opportunity, and I think that he will. I don't get the point at this point of sheltering him from that. Play action should be a staple of this offense, so might as well just get him accustomed to it now. Let him do it. And maybe it's a little dicey from time to time. I kind of think it'll be fine personally, but you need to let him do it. Get this going. We can't just we can't keep doing what didn't work last year. And that was already the biggest issue with last year's offense, which was just too predictable with their formations and with how they chose to run. I guess the one thing that didn't carry over was just this obsessive outside zone running. So that changed. It was a little bit less obsessive outside zone this year so far.
Yeah, the defenders are like babies, man. You gotta jingle some keys in front of them to get their attention, and it works nearly every time. And we talked about it earlier. It's the littlest thing. We talked about Kyle Pitts getting open and that being enough when Penix is rushing that somebody else, a defender, Antoine Winfield, has to look in Pitts' direction because now that's a threat. You do the same thing with the run, and play action helps your run game because it keeps the defense on its toes. They have to respect the run. They have to respect the pass. They go hand in hand. You don't need to be good at running the ball to call play action. And it's just frustrating to kind of, still be talking about one of the basics of football, at this point. I'll finish this by giving Zac Robinson some credit because Penix was, relatively clean. If he had married more play action and, with the quick game stuff that he was doing, I think that you get a much better performance overall, but it shouldn't have been a shock to him that the run game was going to take a step back without Caleb McGarry. And he also shouldn't have been surprised that Todd Bowles was going to sell out for the run and then try to get to his quarterback via the blitz on the way. So he did not have an answer for, if his run game doesn't get going, what is he going to pivot to help supplement that? How is he going to simulate a rushing attack, which is play action? That's what it's there for. And he just didn't go into it. And that's kind of what was frustrating with Zac Robinson, is that we saw growth week to week. But when it came to in-game adjustments, when it came to having to make that decision that day on the fly, he struggled. And I think he really struggled coming out of the half. It was really disappointing to kind of see how that offense operated for the third quarter. Fourth quarter, they started getting things together. Penix really started to come alive. And, we saw them at that point. It was pretty much just like, well, let's just get in the shotgun. We'll do quick game and we'll just let Mike do this. And it's like, that's kind of when you should have mixed in some more play action. That's kind of when you should have helped him out, because now at this point it's the Michael Penix show, which, hey, loved the Michael Penix show. It was working, right? Like it set the team up in position, but we can't be player merchants, right? This has to be an everybody pulls their weight kind of deal. So, I can't have, my OC living off the success of a guy that's only started 4 games. That's crazy. And we need Robinson to step up because there's going to be times where you don't get to wait till next week to make that big adjustment on that package you installed that you thought was going to be great for this game. Well, didn't work out. So now what? And now what can't be hope Bijan does something crazy. Hope Penix does something crazy. We got to give, the players the best opportunity they can to win, and that's having plan A, plan B, plan C. If you're on plan D, I get it. Yeah, at that point things have just gone bad. Hardly anybody has a plan D, but we at least got to get down, the first 3 letters of the alphabet before we're just throwing our hands up and hoping for the best.
Yeah. So we'll have to hope that those improvements can come, and there are definitely some major room to improve there. I think the Falcons need to have some way of involving Bijan Robinson. You can't give him the ball every play, and like the straight up run game was absolutely not working for Atlanta. Not everyone has a Vita Vea that's just going to destroy your inside running game completely, which is what Vita Vea did more or less. I did like the Falcons clearly wanted to run the ball inside more. That is a positive development, but I don't know if I would have emphasized it as much this week. Yeah, interesting. I feel like they were like really hoping he would be out, and then they were like, shit. He's playing. All right, well, damn. But yeah, hopefully they'll have an easier time against most other teams on the inside run. But I think the other thing that we saw is like he didn't get a lot of opportunities to be the lead blocker, but like maybe you can't trust Elijah Wilkinson as much in pass pro, but you might be able to run behind him. Like he might be okay as a run blocker. So maybe you don't have to avoid running right, like because Elijah Wilkinson's a liability. Like maybe he can be okay as a run. Maybe he could be better as a run blocker. Not the McGarry certainly, but like maybe that is something he actually can do. Like that's okay. I think there was clearly like we're not running behind him going into this game, and I think maybe based on how he performed as a backside blocker, I think that might be unwarranted. I think maybe he'll be okay. He certainly wasn't like a giant black hole that destroyed the offense, which I think was the fear for some people. So that is a positive development. I think, like, as much as we could complain about some things and certain things with Ledford and things that we don't always like, I think Ledford pretty much always gets these guys like to a serviceable level. Like, so shout out to Ledford for getting this offensive line to a serviceable level, having to bring in like basically convert a guard to tackle, back to tackle. He was a college tackle, and get him ready to go for a tough matchup in week 1, and where he was not an outright liability. So it wasn't amazing by any stretch of the imagination for Wilkinson, but they did manage to make it work offensively. This was far from anywhere close to the worst offensive performance of this week, or like any of that stuff. Like if you guys watch some other games, Falcons definitely not in contention for one of the worst offenses of week 1. There's no question about that. So, but yeah, Tre'Shon, anything else you want to touch on? I think we've gone very deep into this game. Yeah. So,
no, I think we went really deep into this game. The best thing that we can probably say about this game is that it's week 1. And this is not the outcome the Falcons wanted, but the season is not over. They should not be counted out yet. You were a play away from tying this game. And we talk about the tie, but they should have won this game with touchdown catch as well that was missed. But when we talk about missed opportunities, like the big missed opportunities that they dropped the ball or missed the ball entirely with the game on the line and then missed the kick right after that. I know we're all tired of hearing that if we clean up these mistakes, things will get better. But I'm telling you, if they clean up these mistakes, things will get a lot better. And still feel actually pretty good about the defensive outlook after kind of seeing what we saw here in week 1. And just Penix, man. It finally feels like there's this huge weight that's been lifted. Obviously, it's first game of the year, but it just feels nice to have a legitimate guy back under center. Somebody that like you just can live with, the outcome based on their own performance because that he did not cost you that game and he plays the most important position in the game. So, we're checking that box. We're just all hoping that Michael Penix is going to go in there, talk to his OC, get things hammered out this week, and they're gonna look all world next week on Sunday night.
Yeah. I guess we'll have to watch this Monday Night Football game and see what the Vikings are looking like because that game suddenly becomes a game that they kind of really need to win. So I certainly hope that the Vikings don't look like they did the last time these two teams played, where they just beat the crap out of the Falcons in the second half. So. The Falcons are on the back foot now, but they're only 1 foot back. So all they need is to get an upset win over the Vikings. Per FanDuel, I think Falcons are 4.5 point underdogs, which not crazy underdogs in week 2. And you just get an upset win, you're right back on track, and then you go to the Panthers in week 3, and hopefully you can clean that up. So I mean, the Panthers looked god awful. Oh man, Bryce Young back to earth in week 1. So, So shout out to Adnan for being all over the Bryce Young as a fraud thing. So we'll see if that holds up over the rest of the season. But guys, thanks so much for joining us here on the Dirty Birds of Bruce podcast. Deep dive into week 1. Don't worry too much yet. Basically, is the takeaway. I think. A lot of good things. Defense better than expected. And if the defense can look like this, like the floor of this team will be significantly higher. Like the offense did not have a good overall day. And the defense absolutely kept this team very much in play. And they catch one of those picks, and we're talking about a very different experience. Like I did like a lot of what we saw there. So thank you for joining us, guys. Thanks to FanDuel for presenting today's show. We'll be back on Wednesday night for the next Falcoholic Live. And then we will be having a game preview with Dora Nystrom to preview this Vikings Sunday Night Football game later this week. So stay tuned for that. And then we'll, of course, be back late after that Sunday night game to bring you our first primetime post-game show of the season. So we're looking forward to that. Thanks again. I'm Kevin. I have Falcon Kevin. He's Tre'Shon Diaz at Trey3Sean. Go check out all Trey Phases on YouTube. And it also has a Twitter account, right, Tre'Shon?
That's right. It does. And we're going to be talking about Michael Penix and those beautiful pair of legs he's got on him this week. A lot of people want to talk about the arm, but those legs are nice too.
Oh, yeah. Don't disrespect the man's legs. Never do that.
Those legs.
Nope, never. So, guys, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a great day, folks.